Okay, that sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to welcome everyone to our fifth national presentation. And today our guest is Nicholas Yandell, who will talk about composing trauma. And I think without any further ado, I'll turn this over to Nick and let him take it from here.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for thanks so much for checking us out today. Um, I prepared a video presentation, so I didn't have to rely upon my sometimes shaky technology here. So I'll be playing that. It kind of talks about a lot of stuff. It covers this whole presentation, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions after this. Kind of after we play the video and stuff like that, there'll definitely be a time for that. Unless anybody has any questions beforehand, which I can also answer beforehand. But I just say, this is just this is just a subject that has interested me as kind of a reader, as a composer. I've just kind of been interested in where kind of people who use art sort of as a way to overcome other things in their life. And so, particularly traumas in their life or things like that. It's I'm always fascinated when I read about an artist that does that. I have kind of throughout my compositional career, I've used things from my own life, and I've collaborated with people, which you'll see in the video, where I've been talking about some of their whole traumas in their life and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I just like it's an important part of kind of who I am as a composer, and so I'm thrilled to get a chance to just kind of share this presentation and this whole idea with you all today. So, without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and then share my video, Composing Trauma. Okay, let's share it. See if this looks good. We got to share it. Okay. I think that looks good to everyone. Can we see it? Okay, excellent. I'm going to play it then. And let me know if there's any technical problems on the outside. Hopefully it'll be good on my side. So.
Hi, I'm Nicholas Yandell, and welcome to my presentation, Composing Trauma. Trauma is a universal experience, whether we've experienced it ourselves or vicariously through someone else in our lives. As a creative person, my own experiences with traumatic events influenced the subject and the style of my music long before I ever acknowledged it. With this talk, I'm approaching this subject from my place as a creative person. I'm not an expert on trauma, and this presentation is not going to in any way fully cover this extremely complex subject. I'm just here to tell my story and how facing trauma has become part of my compositional journey. Part of my personal interest in this subject came about unintentionally. I was commissioned by the performance group 45th Parallel to collaborate with Micah Fletcher and set his poetry to music. Through attempting to understand Micah's traumatic experiences, I realized that the exploration of trauma is something that has long weaved itself into the fabric of my creative works, and I'd been using creativity, particularly composition, as a way to cope with unsettled feelings for at least a decade before that. I just hadn't acknowledged it yet. I started asking myself why I did this and what it was doing for me, and came up with the following different reasons for approaching trauma in music composition. As a way of empathy and or honoring another's struggle. As a dramatic aesthetic expression in order to describe difficult feelings associated with trauma. As a personal form of art therapy, unconventional exposure therapy, or healing medium. The aforementioned collaboration with poet, percussionist Micah Fletcher fits into the first category. creating art about another's experience as a path of seeking to understand them or as a form of empathy. Micah Fletcher, for those who don't know, was involved in the 2017 Portland Max train attack. He was one of 3 men who defended 2 teenage girls from another man who was shouting racist and anti-Muslim slurs at them. The man who was shouting the slurs stabbed all 3 men, and Micah was the only one of the 3 to survive. Greg Ewer of 45th Parallel conceived of a concert as an artistic response to this tragedy, commissioning Micah to write 4 poems based on his experience of this event and the aftermath. Myself and 3 other composers were then commissioned to either use Micah's poems in their composition or use them as inspiration. I chose the following poem called Crisis Actor. In the space between my spinal cord and my heart, there is a knife. I find it funny that even before the stabbing, I liked using blade imagery for poetry. One of the first poems I was ever proud of was titled The Journey of a Razor. In that poem, I describe a woman committing suicide from the perspective of the razor. In literature, writing about an object in a way that gives it human, lifelike qualities is called personification. Personification is a useful skill for imagery, however fictional it may be. But the sharp pain in my chest isn't fiction. The lie at the back of my skull that lets me itch, the only truth I can guarantee about the only statement I never wanted, isn't fiction. My newfound free facelift is not fiction. The story, skewed though it may be, could be fiction. But graves are not fiction. The rainbow may be fiction. The image, horrifying, of red petal beautiful from thorn thrust inside is not fiction. This empty bottle of escape, the full glass in my hand, the ounce of exit sign on this plate, the week-long panic attacks, the Portland schizoid rocking chair dance, knees in my chest, machete clenched in white knuckles, my breath swelling cancer, my breath leaving faster than I can take it back, the way my blood left my body without my permission, and I couldn't fucking take it back. That was something I'm ashamed of. And it is real. It happened. Is happening. Will be happening. No matter how much I scratch the sutures, praying it's just healing slow, I still can't feel my neck. My nerves are all just train rails, just boxes of victims being carried from tragedy to tragedy. They carry eyes in their pockets. The only thing they want to see is blood. I cannot make them turn away. Given such an expressive text, as the composer, I approached this project in the way of a musical translator. My goal was to take myself, the performers, and the listeners into Micah's headspace, allowing us to vicariously live through his struggles in the aftermath of this event. I was fortunate to be able to work with the poet himself and get his input on my ideas and be sure I was honoring his experience in compositional form. From the jagged rhythms, the aggressive energy, and the dark imagery of Micah's words, I found inspiration for the core themes and textures of this work. Some elements to look for in the music are the alarm bell, associated with the train bell, symbolizing hypervigilance. The quickening heartbeat in the floor tom or bass drum. The jabbing strings are the first main theme. The 3-measure repeated snare drum figure representing the ongoing beat of existence. Other imagery reflected in the music, phrases like blood spilling out, panic attacks, Portland schizoid rocking chair dance, etc. The following is the live premiere performance of Crisis Actor. In the space between my spinal cord and my heart, there is a knife. I find it funny that even before the stabbing, I liked using blade imagery. One of the first poems I was ever proud of was titled The Journey of a Razor. In that poem, I describe a woman committing suicide from the perspective of the razor. Literature, writing about an object in a way that gives it human, lifelike qualities, is called personification. Personification is a useful skill for imagery, however fictional it may be. The sharp pain in my chest isn't fiction. The lie at the back of my skull that lets me itch, the only truth I can guarantee about the only statement I never wanted, isn't fiction. My new Film 3 facelift is not fiction. The story, skewed though it may be, could be fiction. But graves are not fiction. The rainbow may be fiction. The image, horrifying, a red petal beautiful from thorn thrust inside, is not fiction. This empty bottle of escape, full glass in my hands, an ounce of exit sign on this plate, week-long panic attacks, my chest, machete clenched in white knuckles. My breath swelling cancer. My breath leaving faster than I can take it back. The way my blood left my body without my admission. And I couldn't fucking take it back. That was something I'm ashamed of. And it was real. It happened. Is happening. Will be happening. No matter how much I scratch the sutures, praying it's just healing slow. I still can't feel my neck. My nerves are all just train rails. Just boxes of victims being carried from tragedy to tragedy. They carry eyes in their pockets. Only thing they want to see is blood. I cannot make them turn away. There are two factors which connect Christ's actor and the next piece I'll talk about. The use of poetry as a guide to composing. The theme of catalytic trauma, defined as a single moment or isolated period of time that causes an individual's life to veer course, brought about by specific events. Inspired by several instances of this type of trauma in my own life, I wrote the composition From the Ashes of Empires in conjunction with the following descriptive poem of the same name. From the ashes of empires, there's a moment when you know there's no going back. No rewinding, forever skewed. A pivotal happening, a schism, a deep, irreparable fissure your memory stream trips into. You can fill it full of substance, run gold through the gaps, create beauty only seen once you stop yearning for an echo. Striking ground, built with breath, lives of sand and civilization, winds of change, rains of strain, shifting fragile foundations, crumbling as a casualty of disorder and distress, yet still remaining, in part, hauntingly reborn as a more nuanced creature, not as innocent, not as naive, with reframed expectations of living with a wound. Slowly emerge from the ashes of empires, dust yourself off, find extant familiarity, and with hope and consistency, walk away into the future, building bridges when you're able, but never deny the cracks. There's no benefit in pretending you're still connected. Know the divide and make peace with your pieces. After being hit with certain instances of trauma, our lives and selves we've built up come crashing down, and we're left in the process of rebuilding ourselves. This piece allowed me to recreate the aftermath of that feeling in a different form and to examine it from a different, almost aesthetically analytical angle. Through this process, by shifting these feelings into the realm of expression, it allowed me to put complex emotions that I couldn't comprehend into music composition, a medium I understood well. Lastly, I wanted to talk about using music as a therapeutic path through trauma. I was commissioned to write a piece for my dear friend, the cellist Micah Claffey, on the subject of finding peace with an emphasis on natural or pastoral settings. I anchored this composition I composed for him called "And the Surface Breaks" around my own traumatic experience of my attempted suicide at age 25, which was the result of a much longer struggle I had with depression. I took the inspiration and ran with it, even though I wasn't ready to grapple with the feelings about the incident at that time, or really even talk about it, but I was ready to compose about it. Through this musical process, it was possible for me to relive and express buried and painful emotions about my wound up instability, illuminating the mystery of what led me to this dramatic point in my life. In the end, composing this work as a form of immersion therapy brought clarity about this incident, along with a sense of resolution and peace. And the Surface Breaks focuses on a throbbing main theme, which lies fractured and incomplete throughout the first 2/3 of the piece. These 4 notes also form a 0, 4, 6, 7 pitch class, which the whole piece is built upon. After going through the turmoil of the first 2/3 of the work, the piece reaches the final part of the composition, where the theme finally completes and eventually ends with resolve. As a composer, we choose the direction to take with our composition. By inserting our trauma into our music, it gives us control over it. We can compose art that takes us through the trauma, that gets us on the other side. Then perhaps it might give us at least a roadmap on how to do the same thing in our own life. Through emphasizing this survival process in order to cement it in our mind, a dark point in life can become a moment of resilience to reflect on. Ultimately, through these compositional explorations, I want to speak of how art can help individuals express, comprehend, and confront trauma, whether as composers, performers, or listeners. One hopes that they can express these emotions in a way that will help them grow, whether that be to empathize, gain enlightenment from, or begin the healing process. For the composer who writes the musical stories, the performer who lives and breathes the work, or the listener who takes their journey with them. Thank you so much for joining me on my journey through this subject today.
Okay, cool. Everyone, thank you for coming today. Thank you for listening to my presentation there. Oh, thank you so much. Thanks so much for. Oh, I see. Okay, interesting. Yes. Yeah, Jeff, I'll send the link to. I'll make sure to connect you with that so I can give you the original link to it. I'll do a link to it. I a YouTube link and everything else. So something if you kind of want to check it out, you can go to the link after that. So, thank you so much. Thanks so much, Michael. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Abraham. Yeah, thanks, Don. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's awesome. I look forward to your email, Don. So, oops, sorry. Yes. Yeah, so anyway, did anybody have any specific questions about it? I'm also happy to answer them by email too later if anybody has any questions.
I just wanted to comment. Yes, I know I know what you mean about coming to the realization that a lot of things in our compositions reflect things that have happened in our lives, and that was true with me when I started having to explain things. Well, where did you get this idea? And I thought, wow, I got this from what happened there and what happened here, and or somebody would say something to me after hearing one of my pieces, saying, I could relate to an experience that I had, even though you didn't explain that's what it was about or something. So it's interesting how we feed that into our art, our compositions, and I'm glad of that. And I know that I certainly sit down and play certain pieces like a 9/11 or on the death of my anniversary of death of my mother, or really happy things, and so that's fun too, to do that. But I just so many times think that I'm so glad that I can express those things in my own work, and even when I don't realize I do, then I get some kind of a satisfaction of that, without realizing it. So
Yeah, no, yeah, that's 100%. That's yeah, I think it's interesting. I feel like because music is kind of is it's in its way, it's an abstract medium. I think it's easier to sometimes dig through expression, things that you're going through with music when it's stuff that's less explainable. I mean, and I think
yes,
that's where, like it's long before I wanted to talk, I was willing to talk about stuff. I was expressing music, I was writing music about it and going through that before I had the words to express what I was talking about.
yes, like this little plaque that my daughter got me years ago, where words fail, music speaks, and instrumental music. I guess that's why I stick closely to instrumental rather than to music that I have to put words to.
Yeah, certainly. Well, and I mean, with me, it was a process. I didn't really I didn't really start putting words to music until much after I was, it was much later that I kind of figured out that, but I became, because I feel like once you put words to it, it's more direct. It's more of a direct telling you what this is about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if it's poetry, poetry's a little less direct, but like, but it can still be, like it's definitely you're giving it a clear subject matter. Whereas instrumental, it really, it can be about feeling and
Anything. Yeah.
emotion.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, it's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, but it brings up, it's such an interest. I don't know, it brings up so many interesting ways of, it's such an interesting way to like cope and work with emotions and traumas and things like that. I I think it's very effective. So I don't know. I see the value. It helps me see the value between something like music therapy, which I think is
Yes.
very, like that really connects with that sort of thing
Mhm.
a lot of ways. So
Yes.
yeah. So, but yeah, well, thank you very much for that. Certainly. So
Yeah.
hey,
I've just been reflecting on the fact that COVID has, for so many people, I think, intensified this connection with that therapeutic power of music and, cathartic power it has for creative, endeavors. And I wonder how if I'm sure you've noticed that your creative practices in some way, shape, or form has been kind of transformed with COVID. And just wondering about, how that's been for you.
yeah, it's definitely transformed a lot. I mean, and it's not even just. I mean, yeah, I mean that, not just that 2020 was a very emotional year
Mm.
around for me anyway. But yes, it's definitely been a time to, I think, to rely on things like that, where that to, um, kind of working in isolation, having that time so much to that. I even wrote a piece about that. I worked with a cellist in Toronto, or yeah, somewhere in Ontario, Toronto, somewhere in that area, who and wrote a piece that was very much about like that. And it was purposely like a collaboration to like talk about what it was like being, in for a composer in this time this weird time. A piece called "Restless Release" is what I called it, and it was very much about that type of thing. And yeah, it's definitely a time to reflect and to have some of these internal journeys that I probably wouldn't have particularly had the time for. And I was laid off for like 8 months too, or something, right? So I had a much larger time to actually compose and to explore these things than I did before. So definitely, in a way, made use of it in some ways. So
And then I have a flip side to that. For the 2020, I had a commission for the Sonatina Festival in Seattle. A
yeah,
Sonatina, okay, during the COVID. And then the collaborations with the In Good Hands. And I interviewed the students. I want something happy. I don't want anything sad.
sure. Oh,
Okay. And so it really was uplifting to do that, to write a sonatina. I chose to a Mixolydian mode, but anyway, um, it really helped to hear and to work on happy things, Uh,
yes, yeah. I mean, no, I agree. I think it was definitely a time for well needed time for things like that, for
yeah,
self care things, and writing happy music is certainly, it certainly can be one of those. So
yes,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I did all of that too. Certainly, same kind of thing.
yeah,
It's definitely
yeah,
one of
Yeah, I love that. And I found that in your music, Nicholas, that the first piece was more expressing the pain.
yeah,
And the second piece had more of the healing, it seemed like. And those are both ways to deal with trauma. Like you don't,
yeah,
one is recovery, kind of like you're healing, but the other one is so real. It's hard to listen to sometimes, but it's important music, I think, and I appreciate you sharing it.
Yeah, and that concert was interesting too. So I got the first piece. So I got the piece for Micah, the first poem by Micah Fletcher. That was the. I got the one that was the. It was all of the anger. It was all the pain. I got all of that for that. There were four poems. It did get to the end. Bonnie Mitch, the composer Bonnie Mitch, got the final piece to that, and I think the middle were Teksu Kim and Kenji Bunch had the middle pieces. So Bonnie, the final piece was a much more. It did have a resolve to it. It was a piece about like I think it was a piece about like a poem about like finding like a flower growing up from something in like in the like wreckage of things and sort of it had like a hopeful end to it. But I remember we got this poem first, and I think it was one of the other composers expressed they're like, I don't know if I can do this if it's going to be
Yeah.
this. They're like, I don't know if I can go there with this music. So in a way they were happy that I was like at that point in my life I was like, no, I want to go there. I was like, I'll take that one. I was like, give me that one, give me the one, I'll do that. I was like, I can dig into that. So it was, I mean, it was a very it's not really something I usually don't write music that's about subjects like that either, so that was definitely a challenge. And but it was that's why that was a journey of empathy, because I normally I would not write something like that, but I did really want to understand what he was going through. And so that was I was like, I'll do it. And especially it was wonderful that I could talk to him about it and I could really get the inside of it, because he was he's such an interesting person. And it was like just it's such a strange, his feelings about it were so like up and down all over the place. And so I was like, I have to express that in the music, that this is almost like that it has to go all those directions, and it has to like. So anyway, it was, yeah, it was a tremendous journey. I would do it again with somebody, but I would really have to ready myself for that.
Yeah.
It's good. I couldn't have done it last year. I'll tell you, if I was trying to do that in 2020, no way. It worked in 2018 and 19 when I was writing it, but not in 2020 would have been like, nah, it's like I gotta be a different point in my life. So, so but yeah, thank you. Thank you for those questions. So, yeah. So yeah. Well, anyway, if no one else has, let me see. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, thanks, Jen. Yeah. Well, if no one else has any questions, just thank you all so much for kind of just like really
Okay.
sitting through this and experiencing this with me. It was really enlightening and a great experience to kind of make this presentation and all that. And I'd love to share it with you. I will post it. I guess this will be, I think this gets recorded and posted too, right?
Put it on. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks for sharing. I think that this is a topic that is close to all of us, and maybe we don't realize it, like you said, and it's just nice to put into words and to think about, to experience and let ourselves experience it, allow that. So thanks, Nicholas.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thanks for saying that, Liz. Thank you so much. All right.
Well, thank you so much, Nick. Really appreciate it. Really great presentation and good discussion here. Just a reminder, we'll have our final presentation tomorrow at 3:30, and Ben Kapp is going to be speaking on acoustic ideas and the development of musical structure. So I hope you'll join us for that again at 3:30. And we've got a concert coming up in less than a half an hour, and then another one tomorrow at 5 o'clock. So there are three more events to wrap up our conference. So thank you all for attending today, and hope maybe we'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. Thanks so much, everyone. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.